Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Tuesday, October 16th, 2018. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the latest film and TV news. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And writers Hoai-Tran
Hey, everyone.
and Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Chris's Corner.
We will probably do that tomorrow or the next day or something.
That's awesome.
It was a question about someone who wants to know if you should get into filmmaking or not, or something like that. So we'll have Chris answer that question.
All right, I'm excited. I'm excited for my new role.
You're the one that pitched this, so you can't.
I am excited. No,
Okay.
that's my excited voice.
Oh, okay. I thought you were being
genuine.
sarcastic.
No. That's just how I sound.
Okay, guys, let's just jump into the news because we have a lot to get to since, obviously we do Water Cooler on Monday. And let's start this off with what happened to one Star Wars writer on Friday. He basically got fired by Marvel. Ben, tell us about it.
Yeah, so Chuck Wendig, who is a best-selling author of the Aftermath series of novels in the Star Wars universe, he's also worked on a couple of Star Wars-related comics, and because Disney owns both Lucasfilm and Marvel Entertainment is the one who publish Lucasfilm comics and Star Wars comics, just so everybody sort of knows where we're coming from on a baseline level there. But Chuck Wendig was unceremoniously fired on Friday, basically because of the quote that he says was, "Because of the negativity and vulgarity that my tweets bring." Seriously, that's what Mark Panacea, the editor, said. It was too much vulgarity, too much negativity on my part. So that's not just him swearing a lot on Twitter. I think there's something a little bit more sinister going on here, because it basically boils down to the fact that Marvel Entertainment did not like his politics. Chuck Wendig is an outspoken liberal, and he is very, very, very vocal online, especially on Twitter, sharing his political views. And I think the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation sort of sparked a fury of tweets from Wendig, and that basically turned him into a target of conservative people, the alt-right, as it were, and I guess basically became put a target on his back, and it
should also be noted in this kind of Last Jedi world that we live in, with a lot of fans upset over direction of the franchise, these fan babies who don't want female character, all the stuff. Chuck has also been very involved in responding to fans and almost confrontational, I guess, in a little bit of a way.
Yeah. He's definitely lashed out against that particular subset of fandom multiple times, it seems like. And you can read, we've transcribed this huge Twitter thread that he wrote on Friday afternoon, and you can read the whole thing at slashfilm.com, but he basically boils down to he's been completely fired from the company. He's been taken off of issues 4 and 5 of a comic series called Shadow of Vader. He was also removed from a new Star Wars novel that hasn't officially been publicly announced yet. And it's I guess in the wake of the James Gunn news, this is another one of those situations that is starting to become really difficult to ignore for Disney-related companies, and especially Marvel in general, because Marvel Entertainment, I'm not sure if people know, but is run by a guy named Ike Perlmutter, who is a very wealthy Republican who's a close friend of Donald Trump, and he's basically been running the Department of Veterans Affairs, even though he's not a veteran or he doesn't hold an official government position. So it's very clear. It's easy to draw a line between Chuck Wendig's vocal political tweets and the idea that Ike Perlmutter, a hardcore conservative, does not like the fact that somebody who is under his employment is being so vocal and targeting people that Perlmutter supports. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything in here that explicitly says that is the one and only reason that he was fired, but I think it would be You would have to be naive to think that wasn't at least part of the reason for him to be fired here.
Yeah, and as a Star Wars fan, I tried to read. He had this series of novels called the Aftermath trilogy that kind of took place between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. I tried to read each one of them. I'm not a fan of Chuck's work as a writer. That said, this is bullshit. This is 100% bullshit. Even though I'm not a fan of this guy, I don't know. It's just
that's completely beside the point. For whether or not his work is up to anybody's standard is it seems to be totally beside the point here, because this just seems and that's the other thing that he says in this tweet storm is that he was given no warning or anything. It's just like it was completely out of the blue. And he's been very vocal on Twitter for a long time.
So much out of the blue that at New York Comic Con less than a week ago they announced a new series that he was going to be doing. That's how out of the blue.
Yeah, so this is not. I don't know. I suspect that it's because he became. He got put on a bunch of people's radar who he wasn't previously on, and the decisions just started domino affecting from there.
I want to ask you guys, if you were a creator, in the sense of a director or a writer, is there any incentive at all to voice your opinion on Twitter these days? Like, I mean, it feels like if I was a creator, I'd just shut up. I would shut down my Twitter account. Which is so sad because I love all these creators like James Gunn who would, put out, give us a glimpse into his process and interact with fans. But what do you guys think? HG, do you have any opinion on this? It feels like there's nothing to be gained by
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate that this is kind of what the world has come to, because I do think that Twitter has become a vital platform for creators to engage with their fans and to engage with their audience on a direct level. And at the same time, they also have this huge platform to espouse whatever political issues or important issues that they want to bring to light. So I think that there is importance in Twitter platform, but then because everything has become so just polarized recently, and how Twitter has enabled a lot of people to orchestrate mass campaigns to get people fired, which they shouldn't be able to. That should be something unrelated to that. So it's just it's so infuriating, and it upsets me a lot this is kind of just scaring creators, or potentially scare creators out of voicing their opinions or being able to actually use Twitter for what it was intended to be. Well, I don't even know what it was intended to be in the first place. What it should be.
Yeah. Chris, I'm wondering what you think. Do you think we might go back to a time? I remember back, before we were born, I think Hollywood and celebrities, it was kind of a no-no to even talk about politics because they didn't want to alienate any of their audience.
I don't know. I don't want it to go back to that. I feel like it's important, especially now more than ever, for people to stand up and, say what they believe in and call out things that are inherently wrong. Look, I don't want to go off on a rant here, but we've gotten to this point where people are acting like certain things are partisan issues, and they really shouldn't be. It's literally stuff that's good and stuff that's just genuinely bad, and that's not a partisan issue. That's just, it's common sense. We should, as a society, should know what's right and what's wrong, and it's bullshit that people are trying to turn that into oh, that's just your political belief, and it shouldn't be. It should. Caring about other people should not be a political belief. It should just be common sense. But we're in this really awful time period right now where I don't know if we're ever going to come out of it. At the same time, it's exhausting to try and engage with these, certain people. I'm by no means a famous person, but every once in a while I'll get, someone in my mentions calling me out for something, and it's clear there's some sort of alt-right, not a huge alt-right figurehead, but they definitely support those views. And the minute I see their tweet, I just block them, because I'm not going to gain anything by engaging in an argument, and they're just going to make me angry and depressed. So, I don't really know.
And that's probably the right thing to do. I engage way too much when I probably shouldn't. And we even had a writer recently that got kind of pushed into a confrontation with someone, and it said something they shouldn't have, and got suspended from Twitter for calling someone a name or something like that. So it's I don't know. Think about before you respond. Think about it. I think Chris's method of just blocking them and not even having the conversation is probably best, even though that sounds horrible coming out of my mouth. But let's move on. Let's move on to The Flash. HT, what is going on with that Flash movie? Like, we saw that announced, 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point? Where is it?
It's been delayed again. So Variety reports that Warner Brothers has pushed back the expected production start date for the Flash standalone movie, which still has yet to be titled. Back in 2017, it was announced that the Flash standalone movie would be a Flashpoint film, but that was when Rick Famuyiwa was still director, and he departed soon after. So to go back to the beginning, The Flash was intended to begin shooting in March 2019, but because of star Ezra Miller's obligations to the Fantastic Beasts franchise, it has been pushed back to potentially late 2019 with a release date for 2021 around that time. So and because Fantastic Beasts begins shooting in July 2019, it would not have made sense for them to start The Flash earlier. And it seems that they've kind of put it on the back burner, and it feels like the Flash movie is kind of in danger of being sent into the void, as the Cyborg standalone movie has, and it's one of the long lists of troubles that this movie has had on the road to the big screen. It first has gone through many directors. Seth Grahame-Smith and Rick Famuyiwa were the first to board and exit the project within a span of 2 years, starting in 2016. Currently, John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein are attached to direct, and they're apparently reportedly tweaking the script as of now. So there's still plans to do this film, but it's actually ironically not been officially greenlit by the studio yet. So it seems like they're developing it with a plan to make it at some point, but they don't want to tie themselves to any date. So as of now, we probably won't see The Flash until around 2021, and that's about 7 years since Ezra Miller was first cast as the Flash.
Oh, jeez. The source article of this also notes that Warner Brothers seems to be moving past Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill for Superman and Batman. It makes me wonder, do you think when we actually do get the Flash movie that it will be Ezra Miller as the Flash?
I mean, that's a good question. I feel like even now Ezra Miller is, putting Fantastic Beasts, prioritizing Fantastic Beasts, and doesn't seem to be intent on making the Flash movie anytime soon. Warner Brothers could totally just revamp their entire cinematic universe with an entirely new cast, except for Wonder Woman. And I don't know. It's possible, especially since Justice League was a little bit of a box office disappointment.
And speaking of Warner Brothers' upcoming plans, in the works with a bunch of new animated movies, Tom and Jerry, Scooby-Doo, and the Flintstones. Chris, what do we know?
So right around the time the Lego movie, the first Lego movie came out, Warner Brothers launched this sort of it's called the Warner Animation Group. It's strictly devoted to animated films. And now they're gearing up to just do a whole bunch of titles, familiar titles, and turn them into films. The reasoning is, Warner's owns all these, properties, and rather than developing brand new franchises that they don't own yet, they want to just use what they have and turn these things into franchises. And the plan is to do a mix of both animation and live action / animation hybrids. So some of the titles are there's a Tom and Jerry movie with Tim Story, who directed the first two Fantastic Four movies. He's directing that. There's a new Scooby-Doo movie with Chris Columbus serving as producer. There's a Jetsons movie. There's a new Flintstones movie. There's, basically every old Saturday morning cartoon is getting its own new movie from Warner Brothers. And the story in this broken variety in the story says that they're taking this very seriously, and they're having everyone work together, the animators and the directors and the pre-viz people, because they want to make these films look cutting edge. They don't want it to just look like, a standard animated movie. They want it to look like the best possible animated movie they possibly can have. So that's on the future for Warner Brothers. And this also includes, of course, Space Jam 2, which has been in development for a long time. And there's a Wile E. Coyote movie that was previously announced. So these all fall under this blanket of films.
Now, I think we all grew up on these properties. I loved Scooby-Doo. I watched the Flintstones and the Jetsons. But I think traditionally theatrical animated films, if you look at the history of Walt Disney Animation Studios and their theatrical films, have been kind of original properties or basing it off fairy tales. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not franchises. Even if you look at DreamWorks and Illumination Entertainment, sure, they have created franchises, but they weren't these big franchises to begin with. What do you think? I know this Warner Brothers Animation Group, Lord and Miller are part of this. They have some great creative people involved, but do you think going in this direction and concentrating on studio franchises is the way to go?
I don't know. I mean, I'm out of the loop. I'm an old man now, but do kids still like these cartoons? I guess Scooby-Doo has never gone out of style, but do kids even know who Tom and Jerry are anymore? I feel like that's not a property anyone cares about anymore. I could see the Flintstones, I guess people still know that, and like I said, Scooby-Doo, but I don't picture kids these days caring about Tom and Jerry. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like we never see Disney making Mickey Mouse theatrical movies. It would be in line with that, I think, right?
Yeah, it would be like that. Yeah, they don't do that anymore because they know they have better characters now.
Okay, let's move on from Warner Brothers to Netflix. Netflix announced over the weekend that they are canceling Iron Fist, one of the Marvel series, but it might not be dead. Ben, what do we know?
Yes, so Marvel and Netflix released a joint statement that said Marvel's Iron Fist will not return for a third season on Netflix. And later in the statement it says, while the series on Netflix has ended, the immortal Iron Fist will live on. So that part has led to some speculation about the potential future of the show. So the second season of Iron Fist was generally seen as a big improvement over the first season, which was large, universally considered to be pretty terrible. But something happens in the second season of Iron Fist that really sort of changes things up in an interesting way. And I, full disclosure, have not watched any of Iron Fist. I'm not.
I think Chris is the only one here who has seen Iron Fist. Chris, how much of Iron Fist have you seen?
I saw the first season, and that was enough for me. I didn't need to see any more.
So there's something that I think it's interesting to me as somebody who's never watched Iron Fist. So I think maybe we can throw a spoiler warning here and talk about this thing. So if for some reason you're a fan of the Iron Fist franchise but have not caught up with the second season yet and you don't want to be spoiled, maybe skip ahead a few minutes. But I'm about to reveal something that happens in the second season of Iron Fist right now. So this is your last chance to skip ahead. So in the second season, the power of Iron Fist transfers from Danny Rand to his partner Colleen Wing, who's played by Jessica Henwick in the show. And apparently the powers that she displays as Iron Fist far surpass what Danny and the villain have achieved with those same powers. So that's a big change from what happens in the comic books, but it sort of leads to this interesting position for the character of Iron Fist and what that means. So Brad, who wrote this article for Slash Film, speculates that maybe because Disney has their own streaming service that's launching next year, maybe they could launch another I guess another version of Iron Fist, maybe with Jessica Henwick sort of leading the charge there, that wouldn't necessarily be as connected to the Marvel Netflix shows. They could incorporate the Iron Fist characters into the third season of Luke Cage, which because those characters, Iron Fist and Luke Cage, are connected in the comics. They team up to form a team called Heroes for Hire. Disney could maybe make a Heroes for Hire show as like one of the flagship shows of Disney Play, their streaming service, and have that be another show that sort of is separate from this universe. There are a lot of different options here and a lot of different ways for the Iron Fist cast and characters to stay connected and stick around, basically, even though a traditional show is not, they're not going to fall under the banner of the Iron Fist TV show anymore. But what do you guys think about this?
There's also the possibility of doing a Daughters of the Dragon series. In the comics, Colleen Wing is partnered with Misty Knight, and they're a sort of vigilante duo that go under the title of Daughters of the Dragon. And that was something that a lot of fans have been calling for as well, especially after the characters finally meet in Iron Fist Season 2.
I wonder if there's something in the contracts that would prevent that from happening, because from my perspective, and again, as somebody who doesn't watch these shows, I think it would be really a smart way, if it's legal, I don't even know if Disney can do this, but for them to basically create a Heroes for Hire show and a Daughters of the Dragon show and have just those be on the Disney streaming service, and then basically just as a way for them to sort of move on from Netflix, who's going to be like one of their biggest competitors. Peter, do you know anything about the way that those kind of contracts would work, or do you think that's something they could do?
Well, they haven't really revealed that much about it. We do know that the Marvel Netflix shows will continue after the Disney streaming service will start. And I was kind of under the impression, like reading between the lines, that basically Netflix, since they're producing the Marvel TV shows on Netflix, that they kind of own those actors and those characters on Netflix. It's probably also part of the reason why we don't see them in the movies. So I'm guessing honestly that we won't see any of the characters on the Disney streaming service. I'm betting that your first guess is right, that we could see the Iron Fist storyline continue on Luke Cage on Netflix. But I don't know. It would be interesting to see if they could jump over, but I don't expect that, just knowing what I know about how these these streaming deals work. But let's move on to another TV series. That is, there is a Dracula TV series coming from the creators of Sherlock. And this is going to be on Netflix and BBC. HD, you wrote about this for us. What do we know?
Dracula is being resurrected once again, and be prepared for him to be young and sexy, because that's what the creators of Sherlock have known to be done for the modern day Sherlock. So the creators of Sherlock, who are Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, are teaming up with Netflix and BBC to create a Dracula series. And it's going to be similar, actually, to the Sherlock BBC series, which also helped launch the career of Benedict Cumberbatch, in that it will consist of 3 90-minute installments with potential for more should the series prove popular. I think Sherlock technically is still running, and if they want to go back to it, they can just create more series. But
by the way, I hate these 3 90-minute series. Like that annoys me so much. Give me like 8 episodes, or I don't know. What do you think, HD? Like, do you enjoy the like?
I was really into Sherlock when it first came out. I've kind of fallen out of love with it since then. I think that they work if you don't think of them as a TV series and just like films, because 90 minutes is an hour and a half. It's like 3 little mini films every time. And if you think of it as just like a mini series that eventually comes back every now and then and maybe doesn't, I don't mind that format. But yes, so Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss are working on this series, which will not take place in modern day, but will take place in 1897 Victorian London. So it's the same setting that Dracula has traditionally been set in, but is bringing him over to London instead of Transylvania, as he was in before, I'm pretty sure. And it's a period piece. It's going into production We don't know when yet, but it will probably be sometime soon or in the near future. Stephen Moffat is also currently busy working on an HBO series, The Time Traveler's Wife. And so we don't really know when exactly this will come about, but it will air on both Netflix and the BBC.
Now, I'm tempted to naysay this and say Dracula has been done to death, that there's been so many TV shows and movies that have taken on the story of Dracula, but I guess the same could have been said for Sherlock Holmes, right? Before Sherlock came out.
Yeah, they did a good job of sexifying Sherlock Holmes. I keep saying that, but it was true. He has a huge fan base. I have some sort of reservations about Moffat and Gatiss because Moffat was a showrunner for Doctor Who for several seasons, and under that it had some highs and lows. But I think that Moffat has some kind of narrow-minded writing when it comes to female characters. This is something that a lot of his critics fixate on. He kind of has a thing for writing about white male exceptionalism a lot. It's something that you see in Sherlock as well as in Doctor Who, and it can get a little bit tiring after a while, especially when the female and minority characters kind of get pushed aside, which is something that I fear for this new Dracula series. But it's possible that he's growing with the times, and it'll be another fun Dracula series, and our latest sexy version after Luke Evans played the character in 2014 Dracula Untold.
I think you said sexy 4 times now.
I did.
Chris, you are a resident horror expert. Are you interested in a new BBC version of Dracula?
I am. I love Dracula. I was actually thinking the other day, man, I could go for a new Dracula.
Were you really?
I'm not even kidding. I was literally thinking that, and now it's happening. And I do agree with HT that, I do have some reservations, with Moffat, but I'm a little hopeful for this. I actually like the 3 90-minute things because it's I don't know. I find that less things to watch is always good because I have so much crap to watch. I'm fine with I can sit through this for 90 minutes and it's over with. I'm okay with that. So I hope this turns out well, but I guess it really depends on who they cast, really. I don't know how. I hope they're not going to go for really young looking Dracula because that's going to be really distracting, but I guess we'll see.
I don't know. I guess I could get into the almost feature length TV episode concept, but I feel like maybe if Disney started doing this with their streaming service where they released a, quote unquote TV movie once every 4 months, and they did it in that format, maybe I could get around it. But as a TV series, wait, how is Sherlock even released in the BBC? Do you know?
I think it was weekly. It was over a period of 3 weeks. So 1 week would be the first 90-minute episode, the second week would be the third, and the third week would be the third.
And then there would be a year-long or 2-year-long hiatus.
Yeah, it'd be a very long hiatus. But that's that goes for a lot of UK shows. They do that very long hiatus for some reason. I guess they're busy. I don't know.
I guess that's what bugs me the most is the hiatus. And then by the time it comes back on, you kind of forget what had happened. Not that Sherlock requires much of a serialized premise, but yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's move on to Fox, who I guess is going to be testing a new way to do commercials during fall Sunday lineup. Chris, tell us about it.
Yeah, so in Fox's attempt to battle the world of streaming, which becomes more and more popular, they're trying out this thing now where they have both extra long and extra short commercials. But at the same time, they're going to cut back on the ad time by 50%. So the way it starts is there are 2 things. There's a 5.5 minute long break of commercials called Fox Blocks. And then there's a shorter one called Jazz Pods. I don't know why they're called that. And I don't want to know because, that name stands for itself. You don't really need to know more when it's called Jazz Pods.
Wait, how long is a Jazz Pod?
The Jazz Pod is about 2 minutes. So, no, it's 2 commercials. So the longer one,
long or so.
Yeah. So the longer ones are 5.5 minutes. The shorter ones is just 2 commercials. So the longer starts out, so the first commercial break is the 5.5 minute one. Then the second commercial break will be the two commercial one, and then it'll repeat the next show. So it's less commercials, but longer blocks of commercials at first, which is sort of similar to what Hulu does, where you get like a very long block of commercials before a show starts. So this isn't like a permanent thing. They're just testing it out over 3 Sundays in the fall for their Sunday night lineup. And then I guess they're going to see how well that does to decide if they're going to keep it up.
Yeah, I've also noticed when I watched the first 2 episodes of Manifest, which I gave up on, by the way, that show, the first commercial break, it even had like a bumper before the commercial break. It was like, here's like a minute of commercials, like telling you that it's going to come back in a minute. I thought that was kind of strange. I watch all my stuff on DVR if it's not on streaming, so I'm fast forwarding through the commercials anyways. So I'm wondering if this is to combat streaming or combat DVR, because I kind of have it down where I can press the fast forward button on my Apple TV remote enough times to get it to the 3 minutes perfectly, so it'll skip a commercial. So I'm wondering if they're like trying to trick people into not knowing like the commercial break.
It sounds similar actually to that piece that Ben wrote about movie trailers airing like 15 seconds of the trailer before the actual trailer.
I hate that.
As like the bumper in an attempt to like get like to avoid the YouTube skip ads essentially. And I feel like that's something similar, but with TV commercials instead.
What do you think, Ben? What are your thoughts on this?
It's.
How do you watch your TV? Do you watch it on DVR?
Yeah, most of the time it's on DVR, and I'm sort of like you, Peter, where I generally have a pretty good idea. I don't have like a specific. The remote that I use doesn't allow like go forward 30 seconds. Like I know that I think TiVo does that and some of the other services, but mine is just like a generic fast forward button. So I have to sort of time it based on like what I'm seeing on the screen, and I'm generally pretty decent at getting pretty close and sort of knowing how long those breaks are. So I think you're probably pretty on point there with your guess that this is just in order to sort of switch things up and basically force people into pushing play at the wrong time and just, because if you get good enough, then you're basically skipping all commercials and not seeing anything. But if they're just trying to do anything to disrupt the familiarity and try to like force you to lay your eyes on some sort of company's product trying to sell something. So I'm guessing that this is probably going to work out pretty well for them. And you mentioned that you're watching Manifest and they did this 1 minute thing. The Good Place has been doing that this season too. They'll have a thing where they're like, we're coming back in exactly 1 minute. And so it helps me because I know that that's when I have to hit play when I'm still fast forwarding through the commercials. It doesn't make me want to watch any commercials for 1 minute. I just fast forward for a shorter period of time. But I don't know, maybe some people would be more willing to just be like, oh, it's just a minute. That's fine. I won't fast forward through these or something like that.
Like, I wonder how many people these days, there's probably a study out there, don't have a DVR or a way to skip commercials, because I wonder if like that this 1 minute thing is kind of like be like, oh, you don't have time to go to the bathroom or leave the room,
right?
For my dad who doesn't skip commercials or whatever. Mm-hmm. Chris, do you have a DVR? How's your setup?
I do not. I don't really watch. If I have to watch TV, I watch it via Hulu. We have right standard cable, but we almost never watch it.
And on Hulu, you have to watch the commercials? You're stuck with
it does not let you fast forward through the commercials, unfortunately. So I usually get up and leave the room and then come back when they're over.
It's like old school watching TV where you just take a bathroom break during the commercials.
Yeah, exactly. Or get a snack.
HT, what about you? I know you don't have cable, do you?
I do have cable. I don't know if I'll be having cable soon, but I have cable as of now, and I do have a DVR. So it helps out a lot. But I don't actually watch TV that much unless it's just kind of background noise or something. So I don't use it that much.
Well, it sounds like you don't need cable. So
yeah, I'm a cord cutter.
Yes, you fit the millennial mold of the cord cutter. Okay, let's get into our spoiler room segment. I only put this in the spoiler room because it's going to reveal some details for the movie Searching, some spoilers in that movie. So if you haven't seen Searching, you might want to turn this off now. Save this for after you've seen the movie, which we all have seen and we highly recommend. But Ben, tell us what the story about the Searching Easter eggs.
Yeah, so the movie is getting ready to come out on home video, and this website called Inverse had an exclusive, like one of the bonus features called The Theory Behind Easter Eggs. And there is this really cool aspect of one of these bonus features where, so the movie takes place entirely on computer screens. Everybody probably should know that at this point if you're still listening now. And there's a moment where David Kim, who is John Cho's character, is looking through his email inbox, and about halfway down in his emails, there is a message from a person named Sev Ohanian, and the subject is "My Theory." And you can read on the screen, this is in the movie, it says, "It's obvious what happened. Your daughter was catfished by this fish and chips character who is no doubt the son of," and then the preview sort of cuts off, so you're not able to see it any further than there. But Sev Ohanian is the producer and co-writer of Searching. So within the movie itself, the co-writer and producer emailed the lead character and spoils the ending of the movie, which is like, I don't know if that's happened before. I'm sure it has, but this is the kind of the perfect movie for a little Easter egg like that, because there's so much happening on the screens at certain times. If you look at, you know, the sidebars and like the bottom scrollers and stuff like that, there's tons of information on the screen to take in at all times. So unless you're really, really zeroed in and looking for a specific thing, you're probably not going to really pick out something like this. So it was just really a fun Easter egg for them to drop in. And I don't know, I just thought it was really cool that the co-writer and producer emailed his own lead character.
Yeah, I've heard there's a ton of Easter eggs in this movie. There's like this whole like alien invasion thing going on in the background. I'm not sure if you've read about that. Like there's like some kind of story going on in the news in the background. And there's one of our readers wrote in that there at one point one of the like news tickers or something talks about how long someone can last without water. Like
really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So it's kind of a setup for later in the movie.
Yeah.
In a small little Easter egg in the film, which I think is pretty cool. Chris, you talked about just finally seeing this movie yesterday on the water cooler, I think. What do you like Easter eggs like this? Is this something you dig?
Yes, this is my kind of Easter egg. Like, I don't really care when, you know, Marvel does it, because I don't care. But this is my kind of Easter egg. This is fun, and it actually makes me want to go back and rewatch it now to see, you know, like what I missed.
Yeah, I want to like rewatch it with the pause button, you know, and like read every single thing on the screen to see what they hid in the margins. Like,
yeah, this is the movie that gets better on rewatch, even just watching in the theaters where you couldn't pause the button.
Ben, I am a little flabbergasted that you think that that there could have been another movie where in the movie the director emails the character telling him how the movie's going to end.
Well, there have been a lot of movies in the world, Peter, in history, and I don't want to completely make a statement where I'm like, this has never been done before without doing any research whatsoever, because I'm sure that somebody has done, if not this, then something similar. But I just think it especially works considering the format and the presentation of this movie. And I know that there hasn't really been a movie that has been done in the same manner as Searching, but I wouldn't put it past some other director to have put in a similar Easter egg in maybe a more traditional film.
We'll probably get some emails telling us all about how some other director has done exactly this.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. I love these kind of Easter eggs. I would actually, if we ever did an article talking about the best Easter eggs in film history, I think this is one of them, to be in my mind. It's interesting because I was listening to, I've talked about listening to the Inside, the Better Call Saul podcast, and creator Vince Gilligan has been talking about when they filmed Breaking Bad, they filmed it on film, 35 millimeter film. So the background props and stuff like that was just generic stuff that the like prop department, like, you know, newspapers or, you know, it didn't have anything to do with the show. But for Better Call Saul, everything is custom created for that show. because it's shot on 4K high definition cameras, which everybody can pause and see what's in the background, and there's so many things that like they hide in the background of even that show that I don't know, I just love when a creator puts that much care into even the little details, then you know that they care about the big details, I feel like. But anyways, okay, that brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. Ben, where can people find more of your work online?
You can find me writing at slashfilm.com, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ben Pearson.
Chris, where can we find you?
I'm also at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at Evangelista413.
And HT, where can we find you?
Also at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at HTranBuoy.
You can find me at SlashFilm on all social media. You can find this podcast published every weekday on slashfilm.com and iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. You can find all the stories we talked about on today's podcast in the show notes and on slashfilm.com. Please send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com, and go to our iTunes page. Give us a 5-star rating, write us a review, help spread the word, tell your friends, and we'll see you tomorrow. Itchy, so what do you watch in the background on your TV?
Oh, Chopped, usually. This is like not something that I mean, sometimes I used to watch like Doctor Who, for example, or shows that I want to see live, but something that I generally don't need to pay attention to, like reality TV or reruns of Friends.
Ben, do you ever watch anything in the background? I know Brad works with stuff in the background.
I can't do it. I can't do it at all. I just get too distracted, so I just sort of power through work and then maybe watch stuff in the evening or something. But
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I can't have stuff on in the background while I'm working, because then I'll just stop and watch it. So, no.
See, when I was younger, I used to have like DVD commentaries running on in the background.
I can't do that.
Yeah, but I can't do it now. I can't work and do it at the same time.
I listen to a ton of podcasts, and like in between, when I'm like walking to go to the bathroom, or anytime I walk away from my computer for, even if it's just to like take the laundry out for 2 minutes or something, I'll just be listening to a podcast, and I'll like just pause and play it. I'll only listen to like a 2-minute stretch, and then I'll work for like 2 straight hours, and then go back and listen to the next 3-minute stretch, and then
that's so fascinating.
I don't know. I can track the stories or whatever in my mind, but I don't know. That's the only thing that I do and it's not even technically while I'm working. It's just sort of like in between, on breaks, or like while I'm eating lunch or something. Maybe I'll listen to a podcast or something like that, but that's only for like half an hour. So.
I feel like I would lose track of the conversations if I was listening to a conversation in like a 3-minute chunks.
I don't know. I guess I've just been doing it for years that I've gotten pretty good at it. If you can, I mean, that's like the lamest skill of all time, I guess.
Ben, that's what you're good at.
Put it on your resume.